Well, hey everyone, and welcome to a very special video on my channel. And it's special because we're reviewing this 2020 Audi Q7 55. Now this is a very important car to Audi because it's the largest model they offer in their lineup. It has seating for up to 7, a very spacious trunk, and a powerful turbocharged V6 under the hood. It is a massive car in every sense of the word, and I can't wait to show you around what they've changed for 2020. So stick around till the end, and let's get right into it. All right, let's jump right into this review, and I'd like to begin by discussing the outside and the extra design and styling that Audi has given the new Q7. Now, if you were to put this 2020 model up next to a 2019 model, you'd see that while they have a similar design overall, a few things have been tweaked and updated with the 2020 to make it look a lot more modern and not nearly as outdated. So that starts off in the front end of this car, which I personally think looks very sharp and very aggressive. It's similar to all the other models in Audi's lineup, which is to say that it's very good looking. A few of the cool features they've added up here in the front end of the Q7 include the Audi single frame grille. This is on all their models across the entire lineup, and it's been that way really for years and years. And that's because Audi wants to give their cars a distinct and a unique look. When you look at the front end of this car, even if it didn't have any badges on it, you'd immediately be able to tell that it's an Audi just because of that single frame grille. So it's a really cool feature, but it also includes a very important purpose. It is fully functional and it allows air to flow into the engine to feed it and help with combustion, but also to cool it down. Now, another important thing to look at on the front end of this car, you may have already noticed, maybe you didn't, but here we've also got full LED HD matrix style laser light Audi headlights. And that's quite the name, but they are quite the headlights, if I do say so. They come with a really cool feature that involves shooting lasers around in them. So not only is this going to give you better nighttime visibility, but it's also going to prevent you from blinding other drivers on the road. This is not a feature offered in the base model. You do have to upgrade. It is an optional pay extra option, but it really does look quite nice on the front end of this car. And as you can see from the turn signals in both the front and the rear, they've got a really cool animation to them. But moving a little bit away from the front of this car, I'd like to draw your attention to the side where we've got even more cool features and updated styling. So right away you can tell a couple of nice creases along the side that really highlight the aggressive profile of this car. It does raise up once it's turned on, so you could take it off-road if you wanted to, and that's really demonstrated by the sharp and aggressive side of this car. I'd also like to point out these gorgeous gloss black with chrome highlight wheels. These are the optional 20-inch wheels offered on the higher trim level, and they provide a ton of rich contrast to the side of this car. I really love how it balances out all the white paint with this deep gloss black. It's really eye-catching and just gorgeous in every way. We've also got that gloss black continued here around the windowsill. It really does a good job of blocking off the windows, and in general, this car looks fantastic from the side. Now I'm going to wrap things off in the rear of the car where things have been updated once again, but maybe not quite as much as the rest of the car. It does look a little bit similar to the previous Q7, but as you can see, updated full LED taillights, some new chrome accent bar that goes across the rear. And I'd also like to point out that this car does not have any visible exhaust tips. But I think that's enough about the exterior of this car. Let's go ahead and hop in on the inside and check out some of the cool features in there. Moving right along in this review, I'd now like to show you guys around the updated interior of the 2020 Audi Q7. And I'd like to start the interior off by discussing some of the different materials Audi has added to really bring their game to the next level with the Audi Q7. And by that, I mean the majority of what you're touching in here is going to be a very soft, high quality leather surface. So the steering wheel and the gear selector here are of the highest quality dark gray leather. Not only does this provide a beautiful visual contrast to the interior, it's very nice to look at, it's also very nice and soft to feel on your hands. And in other areas of the interior where you might not be touching as often, but you're still going to be looking, we've got some lower quality leather, which is still really nice, but not quite as soft as what is up here on the steering wheel. And in addition to all that gorgeous leather, we've also got some gloss black up here on the dashboard. I'm not a huge fan of gloss black just because it tends to attract a lot of dust and dirt and fingerprints, but we've also got nice gloss wood trim on other areas around the car, and it really all comes together to form a very well laid out interior that's very pleasant to look at and to touch and feel. Now, in terms of the actual comfort, in addition to the materials, Audi has put a lot of time and effort into the ergonomics of this interior. So it comes standard with the heated 8-way power adjustable front seats. These can move in pretty much any way you want. They come with 4-way lumbar support, so your back is going to be supported at all times. They've also got this nice wide armrest in here. It's wide enough that someone who's thin like me could definitely fit at least 3 or 4 arms on it. We've also got a nice feature where it does slide forward and up, so that if you don't need to access the container in here, it also provides a lot more support to your arms, even when they're forward and holding on to the steering wheel. So that's a really nice attention to detail. But if you do want to access this cupboard in here, it does pull right up. You've got a wireless phone charging spot, as well as a couple USB ports and an SD card drive, as well as a little bit of a change drawer here where you could keep a variety of things. Now, we've also got a couple of cup holders up here. Obviously, you could use those for drinks, or you could stick the wireless key in them. It has a sensor in there that is going to obviously be able to tell whether or not the key is in there. And if the key is in that front cup holder, it allows you to use the wireless engine start stop button up here. And once you do that, the engine springs to life, but we've also got a few more things springing to life, namely the various screens around the car. And once these screens are all loaded up, you can see that they control a variety of different features within the car. This bottom screen down here is going to control the air conditioning and allow you a little bit more access to this upper screen, which involves the navigation system. So you've got a built-in GPS in the car, but it also controls the different drive modes in the car. And that's really going to help organize the car around a specific terrain to make it as comfortable as possible at all times. Now, the third and final screen in this car is actually called the Audi Virtual Cockpit, and it is essentially the gauge cluster in the car, but it does so much more than a regular analog gauge cluster. Not only does it have, obviously, a few gauges that show you the tachometer and the speedometer, but it can also show you maps, the different settings in the car, and really allow you to access pretty much everything you need to access when you're driving. But in a car that's as big as the Q7 is, I'd imagine most customers would place just as much importance on the second and third row as they would on the first row. If you're buying the Q7, obviously you're getting it for the enormous amount of space it offers. Otherwise, I'd recommend going ahead and looking at the Q5, the Q3, or one of Audi's smaller models. What the Q7 is all about, in addition to that luxury and technology, is the space. And I'm happy to say that here in the second row, at 6'2", I am perfectly comfortable. There's plenty of legroom. I actually have a few extra inches, which is rare for someone as tall as me. And there's also a good amount of headroom. Even here in the third seat, if I were to move into the middle, there's still plenty of room for me. And I've also got some nice air conditioning here to keep me cool on the ride. But unlike some of Audi's other models, the Q7 takes it a step farther, because there is a whole other row behind this one, which is going to seat 2 more passengers. So to access that, all you got to do is pull down here on this lever, and that allows the second row to fold down. However, you'll see we've run into a small issue because the third row isn't actually moved up. So that's not an issue. All we got to do is press this button right here, and it will automatically, electronically fold itself up. So you've got no effort whatsoever. It does its thing automatically, and now we have access to the third row. We can actually pop this second row seat up even farther to allow plenty of room and hop back here nice and easy. Now, that only takes a few seconds when you're not trying to demonstrate it. Unfortunately, there is a downside with the third row in that there is not a ton of space back here. A lot of the space in the back of the car is dedicated to the trunk, which is important, but that does leave the third row a little bit lacking. At 6'2", as I said before, I am a little bit cramped back here. There's a good amount of headroom, don't get me wrong, but as you can see, well, the leg room, it's not great. I can manage, but I don't want to. Now, don't go anywhere, because I am about to take this car on a full extensive test drive to let you know how it feels out on the road. But before we get there, I would like to take a moment to discuss what we have under the hood, which is the powertrain of the new 2020 Q7. Now, similar to the exterior and the interior, this has been updated for 2020, and it's available with 2 powertrains. The base model is offered with a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine with 248 horsepower and an 8-speed Triptonic automatic transmission. However, here in the Q7 55 model, we have an upgraded 3-liter turbocharged V6, which is going to offer a little bit more horsepower at 369. And this is really going to help out on the highway when you need to pass somebody. It offers a lot more torque for you to be able to do that. And obviously it still has that same 8-speed automatic transmission and all-wheel drive system that comes standard in the Q7. But in a big family hauler like this Q7, the powertrain really isn't as important as the way everything feels when you're driving. So let's go ahead and hop in the driver's seat and check it out. And now it's finally time for my favorite part of the review and a lot of my viewers' favorite part of the review, where I finally get to take the 2020 Audi Q7 55 out on a test drive. Now, I've driven probably the majority of Audi's lineup. There's a couple models I haven't gotten to yet, but everything from the A8 to the R8 and the RS3 and all their luxury and sporty models, I've had the great pleasure and opportunity to test drive. So I've become pretty familiar with the brand during all these reviews, and I have to say, I am really impressed with how far Audi has come over the past few years. Their models from about a decade ago, while they were good, they weren't great. You know, they were a little bit outdated. They didn't have quite the same level of attention to detail and the same level of technology as brands like BMW and Mercedes had. Well, the year is 2020, and like I said, Audi has improved quite a lot to where they might actually be better than other luxury brands, in my humble opinion. And the Q7 is no different. It rides very smooth and very quiet thanks to the adaptive electronic suspension system. It just soaks up every bump in the road to where you're really not feeling the majority of what you're driving over, which in a luxury car like this, that's really what most customers want. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of this review, Audi does offer the Q7 with two different powertrains. They both have standard all-wheel drive, but the one model is a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine with around 250 horsepower. What we've got here in the upgraded 55 model, right, it's the Q7 55, what this model offers above the 45 is that extra torque from a V6 powertrain. So it's a little bit peppier and it's going to be a little bit easier to pass on the highway, and it also makes it slightly more enjoyable and engaging to drive for an enthusiast like myself. One of the things I really appreciate about Audi's website is that they actually offered performance figures for this car, even though it's their largest and really most, family-oriented model that's not really designed as a sports car, and yet they still put up the 0 to 60 times. I believe for the 55 model, it can go 60 in about 5.7 seconds, according to their website, which is, not impressive when compared to a sports car, but for a really big family SUV like this, that's actually pretty impressive. Now, I'm riding along here in dynamic mode, but if I bump it up to comfort, what it's going to do is soften up that adaptive suspension and actually raise the car up a few inches, and that's really going to allow it to soak up every bump in the road. What's great about the Q7 as well is that even though it's such a big, enormous car, it's still easy to drive thanks to all the driver assistance features Audi has added to this model, which include things like lane departure warning, cruise control, adaptive cruise control in the higher models, and also one of my personal favorites, which is the available rear wheel steering, which makes it far easier to navigate in parking lots. And speaking of navigating in parking lots, they've also got a full camera system all around the car so you can constantly see where you're at. But just for fun, let's test the acceleration a bit here. For an SUV that's this big, that's actually pretty good. Well, I sincerely hope that you guys enjoyed this full review of the Q7. If you did, leave your thoughts down below, subscribe to the channel, and leave it a thumbs up. And also, I'd like to extend a huge shout out and special thank you to Crown Audi here in Clearwater, Florida for providing me with this gorgeous Q7 to review today. I'll put a link to their inventory in the description of this video.